Hello, it's Sydney, and today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in January. And while I'm doing that, there's no need to look at me. Instead, I will be working on my coloring book for knitters. The first book I finished this year is Oathbringer. Now, Oathbringer is a brick of a book, and I started it in November. And yes, it is the third book of the Stormlight Archive, so I don't want to give a lot away because, well, the plot is building up to the point where you can't talk about the next book without spoiling the books before it. But essentially, this book was not my favorite of the Stormlight Archives. I really enjoyed the first and second book, but the third book really had some growing pains. I felt kind of, it was needed. The book is getting more political. There's a lot more people and countries, and there's just a lot more information to take in. I'm not sure if I'm understanding everything correctly in the book, and then I'm also afraid to just look up things because I'm afraid I'm going to be spoiled with the next book, which I'm currently reading. But essentially, it is a good book, and if anyone has the strength to read 1,000 plus pages, I totally recommend it. The next book I finished was Everything She Touched, The Life of Ruth Asawa. Ruth Asawa was a female artist. She's famous for her sculptures made with wire. It's very strange and odd and very different, and this book really just shed a light on a wonderful female artist from America. She's a Japanese American who kind of grew up in the Japanese camps during World War II. She wanted to be an art teacher but was denied that because no one would let her be a student teacher. So there is some dark parts to her past, but she didn't let it overcome her, and she worked really hard to become an amazing artist. And she wanted art to be like for the community. Really inspiring woman, and I do recommend starting with this book if you want to know more about her. The next book that I read in January was The Voyage of the Vasculus. This is the third book of the Lady Trent series. This book is just a lot of fun, and honestly, I think it's my favorite so far of the series. And essentially, Lady Trent, with her son, go on a voyage on the Vasculus, and they end up on an island, and so many funny and interesting things happen. And I just really love the amount of time and energy that goes into the different cultures and the different types of dragons in these books. I've heard that there is something interesting that happens towards the end, and I keep trying to pay attention to the small details to see if I'll catch it, but I'm really excited to continue this series. Hopefully I will get to the fourth one soon. The next book I read was The Midnight Library, and this is a very popular book and also a book that's heavily criticized too, and I can see why it appeals to people and I can see why it doesn't appeal to people. But I really did enjoy the concept of being able to see one's life as a book with, different endings because of different choices. I felt like it was a bit extreme, but I think it was trying to get a point across. It was kind of like a fable. And I'm not going to say that it is an original idea. Just thinking of It's a Wonderful Life, for example, has a very similar concept in which one is able to see what life would be if, they weren't in it or if they made different choices. But I really did enjoy the book, and part of it did make me cry a little bit. And I am in a good place in life right now, so it was touching, and it made me smile in the end. So yeah, it's a good book. I don't think it deserves as much craziness as I think it brought to the book world, but still a good book. I read 3 very short books in January too. We've got 2 children's books. You're a Cuddle Bug. I read that in the grocery store. Don't judge me. I also read Seahorse, the Shyest Fish in the Sea, because it is a scandalous book that was on the line of being banned in schools close to where I live. The other small book I read was The Hill We Climb, which is essentially a small poem. The next book I read was called Art as Therapy, and at first I really loved this book, and then I kind of hated it at the end. But what I really loved was that it explained the purpose of art for society, and that art is a powerful tool to teach and learn about oneself. And it would be interesting to see museums use this idea and this philosophy to show society how art could help them. However, when he started talking about the beauty of art in public spaces, there was one image of like something that he called ugly, and it was the image of like a casino, and then he showed this like 1800s mall which had the same color scheme and pretty much was gaudy at the time too. Like, I don't know, at one point I just didn't really understand what was happening, because it was such a good book and then it just turned kind of sour at the end. It also said they hope there would be less art in the world because it won't be needed. And at that point I was like, I really don't know what you're trying to say, and maybe you didn't think people would get this far. So, I don't know. I would skip it. I also read The Complete Mouse, and I read that because it is now a banned book in Tennessee, and I thought it was worth my time to reread this beautiful book. And I have a whole video about that if you want to check that out. The last book I read was The Dragon Pearl, and I really wanted to like this book because it's like future fantasy, sci-fi. It just sounded so cool to have like Eastern fantasy put into sci-fi. It just looked like it was gonna be the coolest melting pot and plot, but I kind of felt like it wasn't written for me. There's some kid books that I enjoy reading, and this was not one of them. So I am going to skip the rest of the series. So what have you been reading? What are you planning to read? What are you currently reading? Right now I'm trying to read like 3 books at once. I think I had 4 books on my plate at once at one point, and I thought I was going slightly crazy. But anyways, hope you're reading and hope you're having a wonderful day and night, whatever you're doing. And I'll see you later. Bye.